Welcome to the NCFCA Online Summit. My name is Amy Joy Tofty, and I serve as the Director of Education for NCFCA Christian Speech and Debate. Since 2001, NCFCA has equipped and challenged Christian students to thoughtfully evaluate relevant issues through the lens of a biblical worldview and to confidently communicate truth with integrity and grace. To learn more about NCFCA training and competition, visit ncfca.org. We look forward to connecting with you, so please feel free to use the chat box and get ready for an exciting live Q&A at the end of the session. We really want you to join in the conversation, so please feel free to submit your questions. You're here today for Summit Session number 4, That's Debatable. In a world that shouts, we can learn how to listen, reason, and persuade. Discover the need for and the value of healthy debate. My guest today is Christy Shipe, founder of NCFCA, the author of our comprehensive guide to policy and value debate, and a Region 9 parent. Mrs. Shipe currently serves as our NCFCA board chair. She and her husband, Rich, have 5 children, and when she is not serving in the NCFCA, she enjoys hiking in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. Christy, on behalf of the League, thank you so much for your steadfast vision and your faithful service.
You're welcome, Amy Joy. I'm delighted to be here today.
Well, I have had the privilege of getting to know you over the past several years, but I'd love for our audience just to get a chance to know a little bit about you. So tell us something completely separate from debate.
All right, well, let's see. A little bit of my history. I am the oldest of 10 children, and I grew up as a competitive gymnast, actually. Yeah.
Something new.
I'm short, so I did gymnastics. So I'm very excited about the Summer Olympics. But then got a little bit intimidated as I started going up the ranks and quit gymnastics and started taking piano lessons, which was something I'd always wanted to do. Okay. And I still teach piano to this day and play piano for our church. So I'm really glad I actually switched from gymnastics to piano, because it's something that I've been able to use so much to serve the Lord. And not sure what I would be doing in gymnastics today if I had stuck with that.
Well, you might be able to do some great tricks on our trampoline, which this mom cannot do. Well, Christy, I'm thinking back over the past year and a half, and obviously we have all walked through some really unique circumstances. So with a global pandemic, and we've had masks and social distancing and different policies of yes, you can meet and no, you can't meet, and different restrictions in different states. And it's been interesting to watch this from the perspective of my children. So I have a 21-year-old son. He just wants to go to work and go to school and do his stuff. And then I have a 9-year-old son, and he asked me once as we were walking through the mall and there was news playing. He said, "Mom, why is everyone so angry? Why is everyone so angry?" And so I think over the past year and a half, there have been all these issues that have bubbled to the surface. And everywhere we go, people are debating the policies and the values that drive our decisions. So as you think about that, why do you think we're having so many more open debates than ever before?
It's such a good question. And I've just been reading a book that really informs my answer. It's called The Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self. Very good book by a Christian professor from a Christian college. Excellent. And what he observed, and I think this is true, is that our society really has changed. Whereas it used to be that we looked to social structures to help us find our place in the world. So we would look to government, to the church, to the family, and that would kind of almost even dictate our place in life. Like, who am I? What am I supposed to be? I'm looking to my family, to my church, my community, those social structures. And I want to fit into society and kind of conform to those guidelines and expectations. So it wasn't really appropriate for people to question those things. It wasn't considered polite, right, to be debating every decision. It's like, no, I know my place. children know their place, that kind of idea. And it's just not something you bring up in polite society. But now we've got a new culture where everything's being questioned and where each individual is defining the world for themselves. So it's like, I define me and who I am. I don't trust social structures anymore. It's not something that I look to help me define who I am and my reality. I am going to create me and I am going to create my world. And we've also got this parallel thing happening in the world of the internet and social media. And when you combine this kind of new philosophy of defining the self with social media platforms, which allow me to define myself everywhere, it really compounds that self-definition and that feeling of I can weigh in on everything and should weigh in on everything. And it also, another thing I've observed is the fact that we're so connected by the internet now. It makes everything, like national issues and international issues, are now everyone's business.
Yes.
And perfect strangers and celebrities, and suddenly everybody is our business. And it's led to a world, like we talked about, the lack of trust and authority. Now that no one is an expert and everyone is an expert, and everyone is sharing their own opinions all over the place. So you see this kind of dynamic at play in the world today.
Yes, I'm always astounded by the vicious debates that can take place in the comments of a Facebook post.
I know.
And it just feels like everything is lighting a match and it just goes up in flames. But when you talk about debate, Christy, you see debate in a different light. So tell us what a healthy debate could and should look like.
Great. Yes. So healthy debate starts with the idea that a tested idea is stronger than an untested idea. That's the role of debate, to test ideas. So it's not the role of debate for me to manipulate people and beat them over the head and call them names. Those are actually logical fallacies.
Yes.
Right? Ad hominem attacks and so forth. The point of debate is to test ideas and to discover truth.
Yes.
That's the point. So it's enlivened by this spirit of inquiry, the spirit of searching for truth. And really, when you have like the kind of debate that we do in the league, the two debaters are allies that are both seeking for truth, and they have a mutual respect, a mutual shared goal of testing ideas and discovering truth. But
so good.
As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another, we do need to push and test those ideas a little bit, knowing that I'm not attacking you personally. It's not about our relationship. It's really about that mutual goal of testing ideas and discovering truth.
It's fantastic. At one of my son's last tournaments before he graduated, he had the privilege of debating one of his closest friends. And so they had a healthy debate, and there were real arguments that were raised. And that debate ended. They walked off that stage, and then they spent hours breaking it down and discussing with each other. Oh, I really liked how you said that, or oh, I didn't like that, or what were the best arguments. And so that's that idea of cooperation and collaboration, so that we all grow and we can really get to that place where we can communicate truth well. So as you look at the culture around us, why do you think that's so important for the world today? Why does the world need healthy debate? We
really need healthy debate now more than ever, because I feel like right now there's so much misinformation. There's so many untested ideas that people just, for emotional reasons, are accepting without any critical thought. So we really need to learn these skills so that we can test these ideas, we can engage and find the truth, we can understand what we truly believe, and here's something that's missing, sadly, from today. We can understand what other people believe. Part of debate is understanding the other person. And a very important debate skill is listening.
Yes.
And I don't see this happening very often, where we're just like trading these, it's almost just like slogans.
Yes.
Slogans one against the other side. But where is that understanding of the other side? And one thing that we do in NCFCA debate is that our students actually have to debate both sides.
Mm-hmm.
So at a tournament, we have these names in debate: affirmative side and negative side. You could just put like Democrat, Republican, whatever. So like 3 rounds, they have to be the Democrat, and 3 rounds, they have to be the Republican. So
Yes.
you really get to know both sides. That's the kind of understanding you gain in debate. And you also learn how to listen well, which is a skill that helps people feel valued and heard. Like, how often is that happening in our society? It helps people calm their emotions and base their thinking and their communication on reason and logic. And it invites people into the conversation. What do you think? Because
Yes.
there's actually a period of questioning in the type of debate that we do, where you get to ask each other questions. I feel like that interaction so often in our society today, I think the two sides aren't even interacting very much. You know, they're not even engaging with each other and asking good questions and listening.
Yes.
Debate is also such a great way to find common ground. Yes, there are going to be areas of disagreement, but Amy Joy, tell me, I mean, I know you've experienced this so many times, where you're in kind of an argument with someone and you realize, hey, actually, we don't disagree that much.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so as you debate, you start to find the areas that you share in common and where the true disagreement lies.
Yes.
And it's okay to have disagreements. We don't have to agree about everything. But once we understand that true area of disagreement, then we can address it. And we can address it, this is what debate teaches us, with real arguments, which involves 3 steps. A claim, that's like what we think of as an argument, like, I think this or that,
Yes.
or this thing should happen. Here's the part that's missing, though, from today. The second step of the argument is support. The support of logic, clear reasoning, and solid evidence that's very credible. And then the third part of the argument is to make a connection to what really matters, so people can understand this argument holistically. So that's what when we talk about debate and argument, that's what we mean.
Yes.
A well-supported claim that is relevant and connected to what matters. This solves so many cultural problems we're having at the moment, with people just being, just like emotional outbursts, claims with no support, a lack of understanding the other side, division and isolation. I actually think that learning these debate skills could help us bring more connection and understanding with other people.
Yes, absolutely. One of my favorite questions to ask my own children is, how do you know that to be true? How do you know that to be true? So when people make untested claims, or they offer their opinion with no support, why do you believe that? How do you know that to be true? And I feel like debate really helps our kids to realize, not only when they're doing it, but also to be able to evaluate the claims that are being made on the news or in school, wherever they might be. How do you know that to be true? And what is the evidence that supports that idea? So with that in mind, Chrissy, I know that you've had multiple kids participate in NCFCA. Why did you choose that for them? Why did you want them to participate in speech and debate?
Yeah, well, you just gave a great reason. And that is one of the reasons, because it helps when you know how to think and analyze and ask those good questions. How do you know that's true? When you understand how to test ideas, it protects us. And I want my children to be protected in this way. It protects us from being manipulated, from believing in lies. It protects us from those things. And I believe that God wants us to learn these skills to engage our minds that he gave us. He gave us a mind, but it doesn't just automatically know things, right?
Right.
The human isn't born with very many instincts. We have to learn. And I feel like one way that we can love God with our minds is to learn how to think clearly and logically. I believe God is logical and he created us to think that way. And so I really want my children to learn these skills so that they can love God with their minds and so that they can be ambassadors for Christ. We're all called to be ambassadors for Christ, which means we are all communicators. And so
Yes.
I want them to learn how to communicate God's truth in a loving way, in a loving and gracious way. And I want them to exercise those skills so that they can be confident and they can take every opportunity that God gives them to speak. We know that most people are afraid of public speaking. And even we can be afraid of just speaking to someone one-on-one or sharing the gospel. But by exercising those communication skills frequently, then you start to build confidence. And I so want my children to have that confidence to speak up for people who need somebody to speak up for them, to take every opportunity to share the gospel, to take every opportunity to speak God's truth in love. And I also want my kids to learn to think for themselves.
Yes.
Not just to believe what I believe because I said so or because somebody else said so, but to learn the skills for themselves of how to think, how to reason. Just like Paul commends the Bereans in Acts for going back to the scriptures and checking what he said to make sure it conformed to the word of God. I want my students to have those same skills. I want my children to have those same skills and be able to do that for themselves. And by God's grace, to base everything they do in their life on God's word.
Well, let's press into those skills. In NCFCA, we offer 3 different styles of debate. So we have policy debate, value debate, and moot court. And each of them has just a little bit different flavor. So let's start with policy debate. Tell me what it is and what are some of the skills that you'll develop by participating in policy debate.
Sure. So policy debate is our most concrete form of debate. And it is a question of government policy. What policy should the government adopt? Should we open the border to immigrants or close the border to immigrants? Should we require people to wear masks or get the vaccine? These are government policy questions. What should the government do? What policy should it follow? So those are the questions that students are examining in policy debate. And the skills that they gain, first of all, it helps them to become a good citizen because they understand how government works, how policy decisions are made, what makes good policy. One thing I've noticed so much in politics today is politicians who talk about all the problems of everybody else, the other side, like, oh, we can't do this and we can't do that and we can't do this, but not a lot of concrete policy solutions.
Yes.
And policy debate teaches our high school students how to create concrete policy solutions. It is such a valuable skill. Even if they're not going to go on and be in politics or government, the skills they'll take away are how to research, how to analyze issues. We talked about listening, how to listen well, how to ask good questions, and just the general communication skills. How do I take what I've researched and learned, and how do I communicate that to you in a persuasive way? And I think you can see how those skills can be useful in literally any situation, any field, stay-at-home mom, any situation. Those are skills that we need.
Absolutely. We hear from colleges all the time. These are the types of students that they're looking for. Now I have students who are getting ready to graduate from college. These are the types of skills that employers are looking for. They want people who know how to think and can analyze options, who listen to their coworkers, who ask good questions, and who can communicate ideas. So whether your child is going into politics, whether your child is going to go into the ministry, whether your child is one day going to be an educator educating his own children or someone else's children, these skills are essential. So I know, Christy, that typically you recommend folks start with policy debate. Is that true?
Yes, I think it's the most concrete. It's the easiest to understand for students. Like, we have this problem and we need to solve this problem with a government policy. I feel like the beginning debaters can understand that.
Okay, so that takes us now to value debate. How is value debate different from policy debate?
Right. So policy answers the question of what we should do, especially in terms of the government. What should the government do? But value goes a step deeper than that, and it's actually asks a question that comes before that policy question. Mm-hmm. Value debate helps us answer why we should do something. Why should we do it? Because we value justice, because we value truth, because we value human life. So when you know what you value, then you can take that and make the later decision about how does that value play out into government policy or something. But value debate takes that step back and that deeper look and says, why should we do something? Why should we do that? What should we value? Because when you boil down all of our decision making really in life, we do things because we value something. Mm-hmm. And so learning how to evaluate our decisions based on our values is a very important skill. This type of debate is more philosophical. You can probably already tell. It's more philosophical, and so it's more abstract. So generally, I advise people to have their students start this style of debate around age 16. Now, that's not for everybody. Sometimes you have a student who is much younger than that, who loves philosophy, who gets into these questions of why and what do we value, and like, well, if we really value justice, then we would make this decision. If that's your child, I'm not going to put an age on it. But in general, the abstract reasoning tends to start developing at age 16 more than at age 12 when we do start, that's when our eligibility starts for competition. So I would, advise that a junior in high school would be an ideal age, especially if they've done a few years of policy debate. Mm-hmm. Maybe they've gotten that and it's like, okay, I've got this now, then switch over to value debate.
Okay, that's great. I know, Christy, sometimes we think of values as, well, I value life, so therefore this is what we should do. Yeah. Sometimes there are competing values. So can you just talk about how value debate weighs those values in the round?
Sure. So weighing values is kind of the subject of philosophy. This is what philosophers do. When you dig into their works, you'll see they talk in this language. And they talk in the language of, this is what we should value. Here's what it means. But how do I weigh one value against another? So there's different philosophers. There's different ways to weigh that out. But we look at certain criteria that have been developed by philosophers over literally thousands of years. I mean, we're talking back to Aristotle and Plato and those guys. And it's debatable what kind of criteria we should use.
Yes.
But, it can be criteria like, this is the most essential thing for human flourishing, or, like this is instrumental to achieve this other value. So the one that is the goal is really the higher value. And this instrumental value is just getting us to that goal. So it's lesser. So there's some different reasoning like that. That is the subject of philosophy that helps us weigh competing values with criteria, or sometimes it's called value hierarchies. So
I think that's really important as our young people are growing up, as they're taking those steps into adulthood. When you're young, The world seems black and white. There is right and there is wrong, and there is nothing in between. When you are stepping into adulthood, you realize that there are competing values, and we have to really be able to think and evaluate those using the circumstances. And so value debate to me is a very necessary skill for our young people to learn, because if we don't help them to weigh those values, the world will be all too happy to help them and to tell them how to evaluate those values. So again, going back to that idea of learning to think for themselves, learning to evaluate based on biblical principles, based on wisdom throughout the ages, I think those are really important skills. So a few years ago, we introduced our third style of debate, which is Moot Court. And how does Moot Court challenge older students?
Moot Court is a fun challenge for older students because it simulates arguing in front of the United States Supreme Court. So you've got, it's constitutional law. You've got a constitutional legal question that you have to examine. And this is a great challenge for students who are ready for that kind of thing, who love, law and policy challenges. It allows them to gain a deeper understanding of the Constitution,
yes,
which policy debate does. It gets onto it a little bit, but this is like the deep dive into constitutional yes. issues. And it challenges them in the area of logic, to deepen their logic and to deepen their argumentation skills. This style is really built on the whole body of law that has come in the United States from, all the Supreme Court cases that have been decided and that kind of thing. So if that's something that your student loves to talk about, Supreme Court cases and new decisions coming down, that's a hot topic in our house. They will love Moot Court.
I think too, just be advised that if your child is not familiar with those things, they can still get involved in this activity. So I love this activity because it really encourages my students to read the Constitution. We are all citizens of this great country. Many of us have no idea what our constitutional rights are. And so encouraging your children to become involved. One I do appreciate about Moot Court is it's a closed universe. So every year the league hands out a packet of information. So we're not expecting our high school students to know all of the finer points and precedents of law. There's a limited scope that they are studying each year. But what it does do is it challenges them to really examine two different constitutional amendments and then to apply what's in there to various cases that have been decided across the ages. So fantastic opportunity. We bring in actual attorneys and lawyers and judges to be able to judge this event and interact with the students live. It's just very exciting. I'm so thankful for it. So now that we've talked about healthy debate, what it looks like, how people can get their students involved in that, I would like to know, Christy, you were a debater. Mm-hmm. You did this activity as a young person. So how have the skills that you learned in debate prepared you for life?
Oh my goodness. I use these skills every single day. The first thing that I think of is debate really helped me to organize my thoughts. Mm-hmm. I remember struggling with that so much through high school. And then I finally started to debate in college. I didn't have the opportunity in high school. There was nothing I could participate in, which is one reason why I started this league after college. But I struggled to organize my thoughts and to understand how they connected, yes. to put them into a logical progression. And of course, that held back my communication because I'm thinking, I don't know what it all means or how to connect it. So I'm having trouble explaining it and right. speaking to people. So it's really helped me organize my thoughts into a logical flow, and then I can communicate that better. It's also helped me tremendously in my study of the Bible. I use these same skills to study the Bible, to research and analyze and evaluate scripture. I'm using all the tools that are out there for reading scripture, and it's just made my Bible reading really come alive. It's made the Bible become such an exciting, rich book that I love exploring yes. by using those deeper skills of analysis and research and understanding how pieces fit together and finding the logic there. that's in the Bible. It's also given me courage to speak up in difficult situations and, just in the regular old situations where you get asked to speak, at a Bible study or church group or something. And I might not have had the courage to say yes had I not practiced those skills and gained a little bit of confidence. It's also helped me in sharing my faith, to learn how to bridge that gap, because like I was talking about, this was actually a huge part of my debate education in college. One thing I learned is that when I was in college, I was communicating in a way where I was making a lot of assumptions about my audience and what they understood.
Sure.
And they didn't understand it. And I knew that I had the facts correct, but the other side was winning because they understood the audience better and what connected with them. And I didn't understand that. I had all my facts and stuff, but I didn't understand how to connect that to the audience and to make it something they would care about and understand. And that really challenged me, especially in the area of sharing my faith, to not just go out and start talking about inerrancy and, whatnot jargon of theology. People don't understand that, but to learn how to make my communication understandable and connect with the people that I'm talking to. That has been a huge gift that debate has given me.
And we have no greater example of that than Jesus himself. All of his teachings were directed at the audience for whom they were intended. And I appreciate the stories that he told and the questions that he asked. He was the master bridge builder. And so we can learn from that example. So let's talk about outside of faith. How does healthy debate make us better citizens, better leaders in our world? How can we connect what we know to the world around us?
Yes, debate really gives the skills for our students to become young adults who can make excellent, informed policy decisions. And I think get them excited about being citizens and taking that civic responsibility, because they're going to be exploring those kinds of questions through debate. And I think it gets them invested and excited about those areas and makes them into great citizens that care. But also it helps them learn how to, like as leaders, to learn how to persuade others. And like we were talking about, connect the truth of their message to something that the audience cares about.
Yes.
So that they can persuade and lead people into, ultimately into God's truth, but also into wisdom, into wise decision making, and wherever they might have opportunities to lead. And it helps them to understand how to research and analyze issues from a biblical worldview, which we all need to learn how to do.
I am so thankful for some of the resolutions that the Debate Resolution Committee has given our students to research. So one year in particular, the students researched higher education. And I will tell you that it shaped the next years of my son's life. So as he did research and as he dug into some of the costs and some of the policies and some of the student loans, one of the decisions that he made that year is, I will not assume student debt. And it has shaped his thinking. And as he's applied biblical principles to that, I'm so excited to watch. He will graduate this year and he will have no college debt. So the issues that they learn sometimes are very, very practical. Sometimes they are a little bit more distant and they have to apply those truths then to things in their own lives. But I love that idea that they're learning how to intersect their faith, the word of God, with the decisions that they have to make in life. So I just can't speak highly enough for the activity. Outside of NCFCA, let's fast forward. We now have thousands of alumni throughout the country, and they are involved in every different walk of life. How can healthy debate shape our culture?
I have a vision for Christian young people shaping every area of culture. So I'm going to get a little theological here for a second. But when Adam and Eve fell, it wasn't only humanity that fell, it was also all of creation, right? God subjected the whole of creation to the curse and the fall. But then we see in Romans that all of creation is groaning and waiting for the day when we will be renewed and restored. And that process is starting right now.
Yes.
God is making all things new, and he has made us ambassadors of that message. And so I can see people, and have seen people, taking these skills into Hollywood to make films, redemptive films and television that speak of these truths through their art and through their creativity. Taking these skills, of course, into the world of politics and government and redeeming that culture to speak God's truth into those issues. And, one of the, I think, biggest biblical principles we bring to politics is love your neighbor as yourself.
Yes.
How can we best love our neighbor? We need those people shaping that into our churches as pastors and as in other positions, learning how to speak and communicate God's truth into the community, because church is really like that Christian lighthouse community center, right? And so it's a way to reach out to the whole community. But every field, science, engineering, math, any of it, all of it is being made new. And we are the ambassadors. We are the communicators. We are God's agents to help bring that message and that redemptive message into every area of culture. So however God has gifted you, he wants you to be his ambassador in that field, in that area, and use your particular talents and gifts in, literally any area. My one daughter is, she loves baking. And so she does wedding cakes and all sorts of baking. And she's bringing God's redemption and love into that area. And I can see students using these skills in any of those areas, because all of us need to learn how to communicate and build bridges and make connections with people. That's what it's all about.
It's fantastic. So Christy, speak to the parent who says, I have no experience in debate. I have no idea how to get started. I'm not even sure that I'm ready for this. How do you encourage those folks to get involved?
You've come to the right place. We have lots of resources for you. So policy, debate, and value, let's see, all of our activities, we have comprehensive curriculums available. And these curriculums, don't let them intimidate you, because they all have guides that help walk even parents who have no previous experience. The guides help walk parents through how to teach this to your kids. But beyond that, we also have lots of clubs you can find on our website to connect up with other people. We've got a resource library full of other videos and how-tos. And to make sense of it all, we have a fantastic resource. Remind me of the name, Amy Joy. I want to say
The Stepping Stone. Yep. Stepping Stone.
Yes. The Stepping Stones guides that helps pull all of those resources that we have available into a weekly step-by-step. Here's what you do with your kids. Here's, if you want to teach them speech or debate or whatever, just do this thing this week. Ask this question, go to the resource library, watch this video, do this chapter from the book. It's so practical and hands-on. I would highly recommend that.
Well, Christy, I know that you serve as our board chair, and the board is tasked with protecting and promoting our mission. And our mission is to challenge and equip ambassadors for Christ to communicate truth with integrity and grace. So as we close today, can you just tell us how debate fulfills that mission?
Absolutely. Yes. Well, I've been talking about it the whole time. But debate, like I said, it will help students to discover truth. So we want to communicate truth. We got to discover truth. Truth is discovered by testing ideas through debate. And so that will help students to discover that truth. And then through the process of debate, actually being in debate rounds will help them understand how to do that with integrity, because we really emphasize that, and how you use debate evidence, the highest level of academic integrity. They will be well prepared for college and for research papers and so forth, and learn how to communicate with integrity and with grace, because they need to learn how to understand and connect with their audience to be winsome. All of those things, like, you won't do well in debate unless you're communicating with integrity and grace. So I feel like debate is an excellent way. It brings so many skills together. You can learn the skills individually in other ways, but I can't think of any other activity better than debate to bring all of the skills together into one activity that they can learn them all at the same time.
That's fantastic. So next steps, Christy, can you talk to us just one more time about the policy debate intensive coming up here this summer?
Yes. I mentioned our curriculum and the stepping stones, but we also have an intensive this summer for all of our different events. So we have a speech intensive, policy debate intensive, value intensive. I believe the Moot Court intensive is going to be in the fall.
Yes.
And so these are a great way to do a deep dive into this year's policy resolution or value resolution or speech events.
Yes.
And kick off your year by getting started with some expert teachers. Most of our teachers are alumni who've actually done these events. Yes. And they're wonderful, wonderful people. They're going to teach your student how to get started and to really dig in, for example, to the policy debate resolution, and kick off your year with a great dive into that topic and the basics of how to do policy debate.
So if you're interested in finding out more information about that intensive or any of our other intensives, please visit ncfca.org/intensives. Christy, thank you so much for taking time. It is always a pleasure to spend the day with you, and we look forward to hearing more from you in the future.
Thank you, Amy Joy.